Great. Welcome everyone to our webinar series. This is the first webinar of an upcoming series. And today we have an exciting guest, and the topic is cycling rights and collision. Let me first start by introducing myself. My name is Emily Chanda, and I'm a program manager at pointA. I also have my colleague here, Jesse Han, who's also a program manager. He's helping me with technical support today for this webinar. Thank you, Jesse. A little bit more about pointA if you're not familiar with our organization. We are a not-for-profit, and we focus on creating positive change through sustainable commutes. So really our goal is to connect people to the places they want to go. So we work with organizations and businesses of all sizes to create options to get people to and from workplaces that really benefits the environment, the economy, and the well-being of communities. We are a national organization, so we have clients around the country, across the country. We are located in Toronto, Ontario, so a little bit more clients here. Some of them you may be familiar with. I also want just to take a moment, as some of you attending may be part of organizations or businesses that are already doing great work in sustainable commuting. So I want to just take a few moments to talk to you about BWC. This is Best Workplaces for Commuters, and it is a membership to really recognize the organization that are doing amazing work in sustainable commuting, in providing benefits to employees, to tenants, or to students. So we really are the Canadian partner. There's over 827 locations across North America that are part of this designation. So if you are part of an organization that is investing in sustainable commuting and really doing great work in supporting employees and others to commute, we would love to have a chat, and I'll give you my contact information a little bit later on. Before we get too deep into our topic, I really want to know a little bit more about you, our audience, and see who is signing up for this first event. You'll see some poll questions being launched here. If you can take a few moments and give us some feedback of who you are, and we want to gauge whether you're a cyclist, maybe a reason why you signed up for this webinar. So we would love to get your feedback. Hopefully you see those questions, and that will really help us know a little bit more about you and maybe why you could have signed up for this webinar. We'll start to see some responses. Appreciate you if you're taking the time to answer. Fantastic. So without any further ado, I would love to take this opportunity to introduce our guest speaker today, Mr. David Shellnutt. Mr. Shellnutt is a managing partner at The Biking Lawyer. The Biking Lawyer is a law firm dedicated to helping injured cyclists and other vulnerable people across Ontario. And while the Biking Lawyer teams help individual cyclists, their goal is also to help the broader cycling community. From founding the Toronto Bike Brigade to changing how police handle dooring cases, the Biking Lawyer is here to help. So I will pass it over to you, David, and we look forward to your presentation. Please keep in mind that at the end of this presentation, we will have time for some Q&A. So please keep your questions, or you can use the Q&A feature, but we will answer them at the very end of this presentation, and we'll make sure that we leave enough time to do that. So enough for me, over to you, David.
Thanks, Emily, and Jesse as well. Thank you all for having us here to sort of contribute in a small way to the really great work you folks are doing. And I love that idea of encouraging people to commute on various modes of transportation, including cycling. and I will do my best today not to scare you away from it. This presentation kind of is focused on what to do if the unfortunate occurs. And there's a lot of talk about unfortunate situations on the roadways, especially in the Q&A. I suspect we'll all have some stories to share, and I really look forward to that. But the purpose isn't to dissuade you from cycling. It's just to prepare you for if something were to go a bit sideways, to either help yourself or help a fellow vulnerable road user to ensure that things go the way they should. My name is Dave Shellnutt, he, him. I'm founder of the Biking Lawyer LLP. Emily just gave the intro there, so I won't belabor that. But yeah, we represent clients from Owen Sound to Ottawa who've been in collisions with motor vehicles, but also we do a fair amount of police excessive force cases and just general personal injury as well. This presentation isn't super long. I don't want to hammer people with the law. I just want to give some points that you can keep with you and use and to equip yourself with. The best part of these discussions, I think, is the Q&A. And that's where we can really explore some of the topics raised or other things you've been thinking of. Should I ride with a bike camera, or what happens in a hit and run? Like, these are all things we can chat about. And if you aren't following us on social media or you haven't checked out our website, do that, because we're constantly putting out information, and every topic there's a blog about. So we've written on it at length. And so if today wasn't sufficient in terms of how much information I've given you, check the blog out, because it's definitely there. This presentation is based on, of course, professional experience, what we hear from our clients and what we've seen out there, but it's also based on my own personal experience having been hit. I was hit by a motorist in a painted bike lane that crossed in front of my path without signaling, and I went down pretty good. I'm going to sort of use that to show some things I did right and some things I did wrong, okay? But let's get to the presentation. If you have questions, throw them in the chat box. If there's something pertinent, Jesse, maybe let me know, or something urgent that we need to address. Otherwise, we'll get to it all at the end. I don't expect this to take too long, the standard presentation part of it, okay? Okay, so this is our Know Your Rights workshop. We're going to talk about what to do in case of a crash with a motorist. And why that's the focus is because it's a pretty complicated situation to be in, but it is also the most prevalent. If we get 1,000 phone calls a year, say, 954 of them are people being hit by motorists. Yes, other things can happen. The dog can run out onto a multi-use path, or a pedestrian can cross into the bike lane, or another e-cyclist may cut you off, or you may hit a pothole. But while those do happen, the elephant in the room is motorists. Okay, so that's what we're going to deal with. We're going to talk about immediate and then sort of moderate, then just past that, the aftermath, what you should do. What I explained to you and how it applies obviously may not be the same. And of course, all those prejudices and inequities in life, that play out from going to the grocery store, to the bank, to the hospital, your positionality will impact how the law and how things are applied to you based on race, gender, class, and all that stuff. We'll talk a bit about that at the end. Crashes happen. It's critical to be prepared. Okay, number one, and this is obviously only if you can, if you're physically able or with the assistance of others able. Get safe and get off the roadway. When I was hit, I knew I had some pain in my upper body, when I was sitting there on the road, but my legs seemed okay. I grounded myself, did a quick self-assessment, and got out of the road as quick as I could. If you can't, ask bystanders to help you. If you are the one who's observing, and like I can't tell you how many times witnesses and bystanders and fellow cyclists have come to the aid of people who've gone down, and it's been instrumental for a number of reasons. But one of those ways can be in helping the people be safe. There's a one time in U of T where I was biking and there's a sort of a cobblestone part of the roadway, and it was raining out and the cyclist went down. And it was clear that they had injured their knee, but I'm not a doctor, and so I just thought better to wait till EMS came to move this person because I don't want to mess anything up. So I got visible. I made eye contact with drivers that were passing by and directed them around while someone else called 911. In that situation, I actually flipped up my bike and used it as a barrier to sort of denote that there was something going on here. But I've later, since that episode, spoken to some CPR experts, some firefighters out of the UK, and they advised me, do not do that. If I'm there just by myself directing traffic or communicating to motorists, that's fine. If something were to go wrong and someone was coming at me with their motor vehicle, I could get out of the way safely. If my bike was there, I would get out of the way, but I would have left my bike and the car may hit it and it will become a projectile. And so I've created a situation of danger. So these are just some small things to think about. But number one, get off the road and assess your injuries if you can. Number two, this is what I did well in my crash. Document everything. Once I got to the side of the road, I pulled open my phone really quick. I wasn't sure if the driver was going to stay or not, and I snapped a picture of his license plate. Okay, critical. Get a picture of the vehicle's license plate that is involved. You never know what people are going to do. I've had situations where the drivers got out, checked on the person, done their own sort of self-assessment, and then peeled out of there without exchanging information, which they're required to do under the Highway Traffic Act. So you get a picture of that license plate, and you may wait a bit longer for EMS in certain situations. So document other things. I took pictures of the big black mark that my handlebars had made on the back of the car that hit me. I took those pictures, and that I did really well. Because 2 years later, when we did a lawsuit for him hitting me, I had injuries, which I'll explain later. He showed pictures of his vehicle the next day when he went to the police reporting center. I went separately. And there was no mark on his car. He had cleaned it off before he went to the police, and he was trying to say that the crash didn't happen, and I just bumped into him. So my pictures really saved the day there, and the case resolved quite quickly after that because he was a liar. So document pictures like that. But there's other things you can take pictures of too. Often we see cars parked illegally beside a bike lane, which blocks the line of sight to turning vehicles. So you want to get a picture of the sign markings to see what parking is permitted, and then pictures of any parking, construction vehicles, or construction objects misplaced that would contribute to the crash. We're not excusing the motorist that turned right and hit you, for instance, but there may be other factors at play that should also be contributing to the situation. In the case of hit and runs, one thing you can document is where are there cameras. In residential settings, there are Amazon porch cameras everywhere. Everybody's worried about their packages getting stolen. So you can often get collisions in the roadway based on those cameras on people's houses. We had one case in Burlington where our cyclist was coming on a roadway, and there was it's just a T intersection, but he had no stop in the right of way, and a vehicle coming the other direction turned left in front of him and hit him and injured him very, very badly. The driver, our client was unconscious. The driver told police that our cyclist was coming off the sidewalk behind a bush, didn't see him until the last second and hit him. Our cyclist is an experienced bike rider and, would never usually be on the sidewalk. Thankfully, in that case, the police did a really good job, and a couple of houses down got a porch camera, and it showed our cyclist. Didn't show the crash, but it showed 3 houses before the intersection, our cyclist riding on the road. So ultimately, the driver was charged, and that was super helpful. It meant it was a very big deal for my client to get that video footage. In commercial areas, there's cameras everywhere. Kind of like the hit and run situation I explained to you earlier. I had a client in Hamilton, client and his wife, who were doored by this driver. They're biking close together, and the driver threw out the door, hit them both, and they pulled over to the side of the road and were assessing their injuries. The driver got out and said, "Hey, are you okay?" They're like, "Well, we're not really sure." And then the driver went into the cheese shop that he had stopped at, grabbed his cheese, didn't come back to check on them, and left the scene. So my client went around the neighborhood, and there was a cannabis shop, a pot shop on the corner. And those guys have cameras everywhere. And so we were able to get footage of the Tesla driver that hit them with the door. We got the dooring all on camera, as well as their license plate. And we were able to bring that driver to book. So even if you can't take pictures of the vehicle because it left the scene, there's tons of stuff in the area that you can be aware of and document. Document the collision scene, any property damage, any injuries to you, that kind of stuff. Call authorities down there. I often hear from cyclists, I didn't want to get the ambulance to come down because I don't want to be stuck with the bill. There will be a bill for the ambulance, but it will be covered in any case by no-fault accident benefits, which I'm going to explain in a few minutes. Take the ambulance, don't worry about the bill, and insurance company's going to pay for it. Get them down there. I often hear too, I didn't think I was injured, so I went home. And that's what I did the picture thing right. I did not do the call authorities down there right. I was like coming off, I'd been really injured 6 months prior to being hit on my bicycle, and I did not want to fathom the idea that I would be having to go through another recovery. So in shock, I dusted myself off, took a picture of the license plate, his insurance information, and his driver's license, and then I said, I'm out of here. And I biked home. And when that shock and adrenaline wore off several hours later, I realized that my wrist and my elbow were in rough shape, and I went to the ER and got diagnosed with a wrist and elbow fracture. So not calling authorities down there meant that I could have fallen off. I could have had a head injury and fallen off my bike, and no one would have known. I could have aggravated the injuries I just sustained, all sorts of medical complications associated with that. So, unless you're a medical doctor, self-assessing, or a nurse on the scene, and even then you're probably in shock, so maybe you shouldn't do that. Call the authorities down there and get an ambulance. Often we'll hear delays happening because people will call and they'll ask if you're injured, and people will say, no, I don't think so. I don't know that that's the response I would give. What we encourage people to say is, I've just been hit by a large motor vehicle. I'm not sure if I'm injured. I think someone should come down here. In municipalities like Toronto, if there's a collision between a motorist and a cyclist and or pedestrian, police have to attend. So it's different in different jurisdictions, but generally the way to sort of avoid someone not coming down or really delaying it is to not jump on the phone in shock and say, I'm not injured. Probably it's, I'm not sure. So call authorities down, and that's good because you're not going to bike home like me and re-injure yourself. So there's individual benefit, but there's our collective safety as well. And we want the data points from each of these collisions. We know that if there's been 6 collisions in 2 months on Paisley Road in Guelph at this particular intersection, our organizations like Cycle Toronto or Wolf Coalition of Active Transportation can jump in and use that data to speak with council, city council, and argue for safe infrastructure. So there's the individual and there's the collective safety aspect, which is super important. Seek medical attention, number 4. Also a huge thing I hear from cyclists, I didn't want to sit in the ER for 6 hours. Totally get that. Our healthcare system's in real trouble right now, hallway medicine and all that. But listen, if you get hit and you decide not to go to the ER and you wake up the next, we see this all the time, okay? And tons of people that I speak to. The next day they wake up, the shock's wore off. Maybe I should go to my GP. Book an appointment with your GP or the walk-in. Maybe you get in that day, maybe not. It takes you a couple hours to do that. Go in, get seen. They say, maybe we should do an x-ray or an ultrasound. Okay. Well, they don't have that technology on site. So you got to then book it down at the Roncesvalles Imaging Center and go there the next day. If you're lucky, that takes you another couple hours. And then that's done. That's great. But they can't give you the results. Got to go back to your GP, and your GP or the walk-in's got to give it to you. And then you got to get over there and have that. So the 6 hours of just going to the ER to get the all clear or the not that you're not okay is probably as efficient, if not more so, than the runaround of checking up the next day with a walk-in or a family doctor. Better to go and get the all clear than not know and potentially aggravate these injuries. Bring in an audiobook, call a friend down, and go sit in the ER. We have all these great reporting tools on our website. I'm trying to see if I have one of my crash cards here. I don't see one. But we have crash cards that help you, that basically condense those 4 points, that whole presentation into a few items, and it links to an online report where we prompt you to enter this information, take a photo of the person's license plate or what have you, and it emails you on site, okay? That's the crash card. If you want one of those, send me an email at info@thebikingwarrior.ca. We'll mail one out to you. Okay, so that's the immediate aftermath. You called authorities down. You've gotten off the road to safety. You've documented pictures of the crash scene. You've called authorities. They've come down and taken you to the ER, and you found out you have some injuries. Okay, so right away there are no fault accident benefits that can apply. This you apply to if you have car insurance, even though you weren't on your, or even though you were on your bicycle, you apply to your own auto insurance. Okay, so I got hit at Dundas and Logan. My car was parked on the way on the other side of town. But because I have car insurance, I applied to my own auto insurer. For 3 years, they paid me about 30 grand in physio benefits. That's just the way the system is. It doesn't affect your rates or anything like that. It's no fault. So you apply to your car insurance, or maybe you don't. I just spoke to a person a few minutes ago who'd been hit, and they didn't have car insurance, but their partner did. And if you live with that person, then you would apply to their car insurance. It's just weird insurance gymnastics. If you don't have any insurance and you don't live with anybody that has insurance or no work car or anything like that, then you would apply to the drivers, but you receive the same benefits regardless. In hit and run situations, and you don't have insurance and you don't have the driver's insurance, then a government program steps in to provide the exact same benefits, okay? And these are called no-fault accident benefits. You apply right away. Within 7 days, you can start getting income replacement. It's not a ton of money, but it does provide some funds if you're unable to work. Healthcare expenses, lost caregiver expenses, and the like. It's sort of broken down into 3 categories. Minor injuries are things like scrapes and strains, a little bit of road rash. That in that situation, you get access to up to $3,500 in medical care costs. The next category is fractures, concussion, this kind of stuff, and you would get access to $65,000 in medical care coverage. There's a $1 million category beyond that for catastrophic impairments. Suffice to say, if you're falling in that category, things are really serious. But these benefits kick in, no fault. Doesn't matter. You may have come off a sidewalk in the dark with no lights and hit a car with the right of way. You would still get access to these benefits. That's the first road you go down. And the idea is to get you to his best position vis-a-vis who you were, what you were like before the crash as possible. Because in Ontario, you can't automatically bring a lawsuit for a motor vehicle collision. It's only for serious permanent impairments. And so the idea is that you access those accident benefits to recover. Hopefully you get back on the bike and no harm, no foul. But if things are a bit more serious than that and the injuries linger, then you're able to sue the driver, basically, if they were at fault. Pain and suffering, what's your injury worth? If it's affected your career, or you go retire early, or you've lost wages, all that kind of stuff are compensable here. Healthcare costs above that $65,000. I get a lot of calls for, we don't do only property damage, but if someone's injured and their bike is damaged, then we would help. But property damage is in that too. I'm not going to belabor that point. Yeah. So we talked at the beginning about sort of how the law and reality may play out based on your positionality. Folks are going to experience reporting to police differently, navigating the healthcare system differently, dealing with employment situations and insurance companies. We've talked to a lot of our clients who have lived experiences that are different than ours, and one of the themes that always seems to come through is an extra set of eyes or the buddy system or someone to advocate for you. So that's at the crash scene, getting someone to come down and speak to police with you. At the hospital, having a family member or friend there to speak to doctors and nursing staff. I mean, in positionality aside, like, you're injured and you may be in shock, so having a buddy for that is probably a good idea too. But it just allows someone to help you navigate which can be a pretty traumatic, post-crash experience. The buddy system. That's one of the ways that we've heard and seen it really work. Always speak to a lawyer. All personal injury lawyers are on contingency, so there's no fee up front, or no one charges you to speak to them for 10 minutes. You can always give a call. Check out our treasure trove of resources. We got our huge blog. We got a pretty big online presence on Blue Sky and Instagram. And we send out posters to bike shops and all sorts of stuff. Yeah. That's basically the presentation, which was roughly 23 minutes. Look forward to speaking with you all a bit more about this stuff. Hopefully it was light on the law and more on applicable information for you.
Thank you so much, David. That was super informative. Some things that we don't always think about right in the moment that it happens. So there was some really great pieces there. Next, we're going to open the floor for some questions. I'm sure there are people in our audience that are, have some burning questions. This is the time to ask. I would invite anybody with questions to use the Q&A feature, and my colleague Jessie will work through them. I guess in the meantime, maybe I have a question before we get more questions coming. I keep hearing about bike cameras, and you did mention at the start, what are your thoughts on this? And do you think it's helpful to have, or any feedback on that?
Game changer. And I'll like provide a caveat with that. Like if you are recording and something happens, it really takes the question out of the situation. So the guy who hit me turned right across my path, uh, was very apologetic on the scene, offered to drive me to the hospital, you know. I made a mistake to say no. Um, and then I messaged him later. I'm like, I'm actually injured. Like, I think we should report to this to police. So we both had to go do that. And then look, he lied later and said the crash happened not at all how it happened. If I had a camera going at the time, that would have been a different result for. I mean, I was still successful because of my pictures, but really would have sealed the deal with the video. And we've seen that in so many cases. Um, in urban settings, I really recommend riding with one up front because I find that's where the shenanigans happens mostly in urban riding. Um, I used to work at Bay and Lure, and on that commute, I would ride with a GoPro mounted on my helmet, and it was helpful for like capturing great content, but also like I found it de-escalated a lot of situations. I could just sort of tap on this, and motorists would sort of not be as overtly aggressive with me. So there was that added benefit. In the countryside, I go ride with my dad up in Collingwood, and the shenanigans happens out back. So I ride with a rear facing camera, because that F-150 that's coming at a buck 20 and close passing me, I want to get his license plate. Um, that all said, you could like it's really it can be costly, it can be time consuming, and all these things. Now I definitely ride with one when I'm out in the countryside, but I when I'm in the city I generally only ride with one on really stormy days, because I know motorists are panicking about the snow, and so I have that as a bit of an insurance piece for myself. There's some great affordable options out there if you do a lot of commuting, and you can work this into your routine basis.
Oh, that's great. That's helpful. Thank you for that. We do have quite a number of questions. I'll pass it over to Jesse to sort through them and invite you to provide some feedback on some of them.
Yep. So I'm going to read out some of the questions. If David, if some of the questions you want to ask more clarification, I'm happy to give people mic access so they can clarify their questions more. But just to start off, we'll go with Molly. So the question is, hey, Dave, realizing that they aren't legally allowed in Toronto, have you done any work around e-scooter collisions or any other types of micromobility?
This is like my whole world. Okay. I represent a number of e-scooter riders who've been clipped by motorists. And a lawyer recently said to me, "Oh, well, they're illegal in Toronto, so how can you even have a claim?" And I don't pay much attention to that. Um, there's a bylaw prohibiting their use in Toronto, but they're not prohibited under the Highway Traffic Act. And so the collision happening on the roadway, all these same things I just talked to you about apply the same way as if you were on a bicycle. So don't worry if you're on an e-scooter, the same supports are there. That said, the big thing, and I just like put together e-bikes in the law poster. If your e-scooter is not compliant with the Highway Traffic Act and the various regulations, it's really confusing. Like, we've got a blog about this, okay? So check it out. If it's not compliant in terms of speed or motor power, there's a real argument to be made that your vehicle is now a motor vehicle and requires insurance. And the Compulsory Insurance Act says if you're driving a motor vehicle on the roadway without insurance, you cannot bring a lawsuit. And so there are situations where you may not be at fault at all, and you're hit by someone who's drinking and driving and suffer irreparable harms. But because you're driving a souped up e-scooter, you may be out of luck. So you want to be sure with your e-scooter, sorry, it's tangent. There's lots of things going on. It's a Wild West. Be aware of your responsibilities and rules of the road and ride safely. Ride where you're supposed to, not on sidewalks. Know that the same supports for bikes or pedestrians or anything like that apply. Do not modify your e-scooter, and if it is modified, like seriously, do not ride that thing. Yeah, listen. All the things, if you're riding an e-scooter and you get into a collision, all the things that you're doing that you shouldn't have been doing, like a 14-year-old shouldn't have been riding it, no helmet, shouldn't have been riding without a helmet on a sidewalk, shouldn't have been doing that. That doesn't eliminate your ability to make a claim if you're seriously injured, but it'll all be points against your percentages off. It will be percentages off the final award to you. It'll be called your contributory negligence.
Okay, thank you for that. A question from KT. So I don't have a car. So if I don't have insurance, so I don't have insurance. So if I get hit, what happens if I'm injured and can't work? What do you recommend to prepare for not being able to work?
Sorry, what was the last part?
What do you recommend to prepare for not being able to work? Or what are the benefits or anything like that?
Yeah. So in many cases, our employers, in my case, when I got hit, I didn't, but in many cases, we have short-term and long-term disability through our employers. You want to access that first because it's usually the best. Then you could maybe access EI disability. If not, you could. That's another good option. But then thirdly, you would be applying to the accident benefits anyway to get the medical rehab benefits. And so if you need access to the income replacement benefits, then you would get those through in your case, with no auto insurance and you're not on your parents' insurance or anything like that, you would access the driver's policy and those benefits would pay out to you the same as if it were your policy.
Okay. Thank you for that one. So this question is from Clem. What if you have someplace you really need to be? For example, you have to pick up your kids because you don't want to leave them stranded. How do you weigh kind of the importance of taking the time to do all these steps versus kind of the short-term need?
I'm not sure I understand that super well, Clem.
Yeah.
If you're in a collision on the way to pick up your kids and you maybe I could see that. Like I was on the way to an appointment when I got hit, and in my mind, I just wanted to get to the appointment, and so I made mistakes, and ultimately later I paid for those mistakes.
Happy to clarify if it's helpful. If you're in a collision and you're not sure whether you're really injured, and you have all these steps that you very clearly outlined, that was very helpful. But you kind of feel like you might be okay and you have this pressing short-term need, and it could be picking up children, or it could be you're on your way to like a career defining work meeting or something like that. How do you weigh I could just go on with it and meet that need, or like how do you weigh what decision to make here?
Yeah, that's a personal one you make. I think if there's any question that you've hit your head at all, you do not make the decision and you call authorities down. Head injuries are really hard to self-assess. I can tell if my knee hurts, you know what I mean? But whether I have a concussion or a brain bleed, less easy. But listen, okay, if you think you're mostly okay, get the driver's information, take pictures of everything, the license plate, the insurance, his driver's license. If there's a witness there, take a picture of her business card or contact information, get the witness, get all of the information, and then go. The thing that will not happen is police will not charge the driver. So for a driver to be charged and face any sort of consequences, loosely, I use that, the police have to attend the scene. So that would be like, if you're fine medically, that would be the direct sort of consequence I could think of, Clem. And if you leave the scene and sorry, radical here. If you leave the scene and there's no witness and it's your word versus the driver's word, and maybe your bike that's worth $4,000 is damaged a bit. When you go to his insurance company and try and say it was his fault, but police didn't attend and you don't have witnesses and you left the scene, that'd be tough.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Good question.
Okay, question from Shad. Is it necessary or mandatory to obtain insurance information from the driver in the case of a collision with a vehicle?
Yeah, so I think it's section 200 of, don't quote me exactly. Section 200 of the Highway Traffic Act says a party involved in a motor vehicle collision must exchange their contact information and insurance. And so it must give that to you. If they don't, then get police down there and for the police to give it to you. If they leave without providing you that information, it's a problem for you. So yeah, you have to exchange that information. If you look on our Instagram, I posted about that pretty recently, but it'll be in there somewhere.
Okay. Question from Eric. Is there a way to obtain records from vehicles? So let's say Teslas are able to record or have understanding of their environment. Can you extract that information?
Great question. I haven't got like what I would call black box information on any Teslas yet. Listen, I've got claims against people who drive Teslas and like more than a few, so I can tell you the safety features ain't preventing anybody from being injured out here. Have I got any black boxes that sort of say what happened? No. I have got the footage from their door and front cameras and stuff like that, and that's usually enough for me. So that stuff I've got either through police or through court orders. So yeah.
Okay. From Peter. So neither you or the driver that you hit have car insurance. What is the name of the program where you can access the no-fault insurance benefits?
Great. We've got a blog about it, and it's called the Motor Vehicle Accident Claims Fund. It's on MVAC is what we say, but it's Motor Vehicle Accident Claims Fund.
Okay. Currently, that's all the questions I have so far, but does anyone else have any other questions? They're also welcome to kind of raise their hand, and I'll let you guys speak on the microphone if you want.
It's section 201C of the Highway Traffic Act, okay? And sometimes, like in Ottawa, police officers are like refuse to give cyclists this information. I'm in like a whole fight with Ottawa police about this. It's like ongoing right now. And they're the only ones that do it. Everybody else, every other police service provides this information. But it's that section 200 where an accident occurs on a highway, every person in charge of a vehicle shall give in writing to anyone sustaining loss or injury, order police, order any witnesses, address, name, driver's license number, and insurance policy. Question we often get is like, how do I deal with dangerous and aggressive motorists, like your road rage, and how I deal with it now is not how I dealt with it a decade ago. But having seen, like I have more than a handful of cases where simple disagreement on the roadway has turned into one person weaponizing their motor vehicle against another person on a bicycle. Like I got videos that are horrific. Okay. Purposeful stuff. So what I do now is if someone does something that really irks me or really was really dangerous, maybe I'll politely say something like, "Hey, you almost killed me. Please be careful." Or if I think they're really aggressive, I just say the license plate number over and over and over and over and over in my head and pull over the side of the road up on the sidewalk, and I text it to myself. I text that license plate number and the make and model of the vehicle. And then when I get home, if I'm still upset about it, and I think it's important enough, I will report it to police. And almost every jurisdiction has a driver complaint feature that you can do. And so this is like good for me personally. It makes me feel good when I do that for someone who's really dangerous. But also it's like a statistical thing too. Some of this stuff does show up in police databases. And so if they're a repeat offender, it's good. I mean, no one gets in trouble for doing anything in their car, but they will get maybe like a more firmer talking to, you know? So I think it's important. Do not interact with folks. Don't pop the backside of their hood because they cut you off and almost killed you. I get it. I want to do that 3 times a day probably. But the risks versus the rewards are insurmountable. One more quick one. If it is you say like negligent construction materials or icy bike lanes or huge pothole in the middle of the bike lane takes you down, there's like so for a lawsuit for a motor vehicle or any other kind of lawsuit, you have 2 years to advance a claim. Okay. And you remember I said 30 days for the accident benefits. But in the case of like a road disrepair or an issue on the roadway that's not motor vehicle related, you have got to notify the municipality within 10 days. And you can usually Google claims against City of Kitchener or Waterloo region, you know, and an email will pop up, and that's where you send it. But you do that for everything from icy bike lanes to potholes, and even the construction I do. Like I usually am able to identify the construction company, but from my perspective, that construction company is working in the roadway with the permission of the municipality. So if there's any idea at all that the municipality is at fault, even if it's a construction material, I still put them on notice. 10 days.
Great advice there. Jesse, do you have one more questions or?
There's a quick one from Walter. So you mentioned something about crash carts. How do we go about getting those?
Send me your mailing address to info@thebikingwarrior.ca.
Fantastic. I really want to thank you for your time. We're grateful to have all this information. We support a lot of active transportation and commuters, and knowing what to do is like absolutely important. So thank you for your time. Everybody that's listening, thank you for participating, asking questions. I am launching one little last poll. We would love your feedback on this session and perhaps what else you would like to see in the future, as we hope to come on with more events sooner than later. So if you have a few moments to answer those poll questions, we would absolutely appreciate it. Yeah, like finally, I will just share our contact information here. If you have any other questions or feedback, we would always welcome them. If you are interested in volunteering for our organization or anything else regarding sustainable commuting, we are here for you, and we would love to hear from you. So feel free to contact us by phone or email. Thank you for everybody for attending, and we hope to see you very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.